Hello everyone, welcome to Indomitable Tech. I am your AML consultant Shaunak and welcome to the very first notebook in Python for beginners. So in this video we'll be focusing on how to install Anaconda and access Jupyter notebook. So the screen that you are currently seeing Jupyter. So this is a Jupyter notebook. We'll see how to install it and also we'll see how to install Python on your system from python.org, which is the genuine source of installation of Python, and then we'll see how to create virtual environment. I have mentioned the links here for installation. The last two links for PyCharm and VS Code. So PyCharm and VS Code are quite popular text editors. So VS Code is quite popular for other purposes as well, like to edit HTML, CSS. So basically it is used for several purposes, handling JSON, then web development. PyCharm is more Python centric, so you can also edit HTML, CSS files there, which is used for web development. But mostly PyCharm, the Py in that is being used for Python. So I have mentioned the links, but we will not be focusing it in the videos. So in the video we'll be mainly focused on installing Jupyter notebook, because in the entire playlist we'll be focusing on coding inside the Jupyter notebook. Jupyter, it allows for code by code execution, so we can execute one part of the code and see its outcome, then execute the next part of the code and then see its outcome. However, PyCharm and VS Code, so these execute the Python in basically compiler format. So the format of Jupyter notebook is, if you see the URL, I'll just highlight it. So this .ipynb, so this .ipynb format is the format for this Jupyter notebook, and PyCharm and VS Code, so these will deal with Python files, Python script files, which are saved in .py format. So these will all compile the code, so that is execute all the lines of code from top to bottom. And in Anaconda Jupyter notebook we'll be able to execute it one line at a time if we want. So basically we'll be executing chunks of code. So let's begin with the installation of Anaconda Jupyter. Okay, so now we'll see how to install Anaconda. So open your browser and type in Anaconda download, and the first option that appears in the search, select that and scroll down. Do not click here, scroll down, and here, depending upon your operating system, select the particular option. So for me it is Windows, so I'll click on Windows. Okay, so I have fast forwarded the video to the point when this particular anaconda.exe file is downloaded, and I have clicked on it. So running that particular file, it will open the Anaconda installer. So click on next. I agree. Just for me, keep it as it is, and then here select the location where you want to install Anaconda. I'll keep it by default in C. Install. Now it will take some time, so I'll again fast forward the video to the point where this particular installation has completed. Okay, so now that the installation is completed, I'll click on next. So I don't want to see the tutorials and don't want to read getting started with Anaconda, so I'll click on unselect these two checkboxes and then I'll click on finish. So once I'm done, I'll click on search, and here I will type Anaconda, and after typing Anaconda I will get here Jupyter notebook. So if I click on it, it will open a terminal. And you will come to the home page of Jupyter notebook. So this is the home page of Jupyter notebook. So let me zoom in here so you will be able to see it properly. For demonstration purpose, I will show you how to create a folder. So click on new and here select folder, and folder gets created. It will get created by the name of untitled folder, and here if you see timeline seconds ago, because we just created it. If you want to edit it, select it, checkbox, and then click on rename, and let us give it as Python tutorial rename, and in Python tutorial click on it. So we will go in that particular folder, and here we will create our Jupyter notebook in which we will do the coding. And most of the times in this Python tutorial we will be coding in Jupyter notebook. The reason being, once we start coding in Jupyter notebook, you will also be able to see we can do code by code implementation. That is, you can write 2-3 lines of code, execute it, see its output, then again write 2-3 lines of code, execute it, and see its output. So I'll select this. I have clicked on new over here, then select Python 3. So it will create a notebook. By default it will be untitled, so you can name it as test 1, and this is how your notebook will appear. Now to check the options available in this particular notebook, you have this file. You can create a new notebook, then you can open an existing notebook using open. You can make a copy of this particular notebook, rename this notebook. You can select here rename and then rename, or you can directly click here and then rename. Both things work. Other things, download. If you want to download this notebook, you can use the download option. Most of the times I download it in the form of .html or .py file. If you want to close this notebook, select this close and halt. After selecting it, it will close, and if you want to open it again, just click here. It will open the notebook again. Then in edit, you get this general edit options: cut, copy, delete, merge cell above, below, move up, move down. So you'll come to know about this when we start working with the Python code. Then view, the only important thing in view is to see the line numbers. So by default line numbers are not visible. So if I have typed numbers over here, but you don't know on which lines. We are not able to see the lines over here. So click on view and toggle line numbers. So if you see, you are able to see the line numbers over here. So if I type in alphabets as well, you are able to see line numbers over here. Then insert, you can insert cell above and cell below. Cell is nothing but this particular space in which we will be coding. So right now don't worry about the code that I am typing over here. This is a very basic code command line that I am typing over here. Print hello. After executing it, it is showing hello. So this is a code block, and if I want to add a code block, I will select here and type I'll select on insert and select insert cell above. So it will add a code block above this particular code block. And if I select insert cell below, it will add a code block below this particular code block. Then cell gives you multiple options. So restart and run, then run cells above, run cells below. So if I select this and then if I select run all above, so it will execute all the code blocks which are above this particular cell code block. And if I select run all below, then it will execute all the code blocks below this particular code block. Kernel is, let's say, if you see over here, kernel connectivity is shown over here. So sometimes your kernel might get disconnected, or if you want to start your notebook again and execute all the cells, at that time you can select this restart and run all. Will automatically restart the notebook and execute all the code blocks. So let's say 1 + 1 the answer over here will be 2, and then let's say so these are 3 code blocks which I have written for our convenience. So if I select restart and clear output, so it will restart this notebook and clear all the outputs. These numbers that you see 1, 2 and 4, so these are just the execution orders. So the first one which I have executed will be number 1, then number 2, then number 4. Number 4 because we have executed this code block 2 times. And if you execute one single code block multiple numbers of time, it will keep on showing the consecutive number in this square bracket. So right now I have selected this code block, and if I click on this run, so if you see over here, this number 7, it will go to 8, then it will go to 9. Then if you want to restart the notebook and clear all the outputs, so select this restart and clear output. It will keep the code as it is, but it will clear the outputs. And if you want to restart and execute all code blocks, select run all. So if you see, it has ran all the code blocks. Then widgets and help, so it is not that much useful. Widgets is if you want to add more options, you can use widgets. Then if you want to save your notebook, you can save it via the save and checkpoint option over here. Then if you want to add a code block, insert a code block, you can select this plus option, so it will add code block. Then cut, so if you want to cut a particular code block, so if I am typing something stupid over here, and if I want to cut this particular code block, I can do that. If I do not want that particular code block, this is a copy selected cell, so if I want to copy this particular selected cell, I'll be using this. Then if I want to paste it, I can paste it using this option. Then up and down, selected code block is this. If I want to move up, I can move the entire code block up like this, and for down like this using the arrow. Then run is for running the code block. Then moving on to the next button, which is this stop button. So interrupt kernel, it will stop the execution of a particular code block. So the above code blocks were they literally contained only just a single line of two lines of code. In case your code block contains hundreds of lines of code, or if it is executing a tedious task, so in that time, if you want to interrupt the processing, you can use this interrupt the kernel button, which is a stop button basically. So for example purpose, we can say I equal to 0. Don't focus on the code, that is irrelevant at this moment. I just want to send this particular code block into a loop, into a processing loop, and then I'll click on this interrupt kernel button, and it will stop this processing of the loop. If I keep on executing it, so if you see over here, a star is appearing over here, and this particular circle, which is a solid circle now, it tells that the system is processing this particular code block. So star and this black solid circle means the system is in a processing loop. So to interrupt it, I'll click here, and if you see over here, now star has disappeared and it is now saying 5, and the solid circle which was appearing over here, it has become hollow again. And here if you see keyboard interrupt, because we have interrupted the processing. So to break the processing in a code block, you can use this stop button. Then this is the restart the kernel, and then this is the restart the kernel, then rerun the whole notebook. So basically it is restart and run all. Then coming to this drop down, code markdown, raw, NB, convert and heading. So by default all the code blocks will have type code, If you want to write Python code, select this code block. If you want to change it to markdown, so markdown is a format which helps you type in markdown language. Markdown language is similar to HTML, so you can use markdown. Those who do not know HTML can use markdown to write the format in HTML. So basically single hash is used for h1 for those who know HTML. For those who do not know HTML, just know that markdown is used for documentation. So if right now it is showing as code, I'll select here markdown and see this in and square bracket that has disappeared from here. And if I write using single hash and let's say test, and then I will type in using double hash, then say test, then 3 hash, then see test. So as you add more hashes, the size keeps on going small. That goes up to 6 hash. And upon executing it, you can see the size going down. So parallel of this single hash is h1 in HTML, 2 hash is h2 in HTML, 3 hash is h3. So basically markdown means you can type in your documentation using markdown. If you don't add anything and just type text and execute it, so it will just show this as a text code block. So this is markdown doc, so it in normal format. By default, in parallel to this in HTML is the paragraph tag, so it will appear. For documentation purpose you can use this markdown. And this raw nv convert is, you can type in anything over here. It will not again this will be used for documentation, so it will not be shown as markdown language, and neither it will be shown as your code. This is raw nv convert and execute, so it will show as a documentation over here, raw nv convert. And then that's all I wanted to talk about Jupyter notebook, and that's it for this section. In the next section we will see how to install Python on your computer from python.org. Okay, so in this video we'll be seeing how to install Python from python.org. So go here, python.org, downloads. So this page is the official documentation and download page for Python. So go to downloads and here click on download Python 3.11. okay, so 3.11 is the latest version. It is a small file, 24-25 MB. So this one is of 24 MB, so it shouldn't take much time to download. I'll fast forward to when this gets downloaded. Okay, so now the file is downloaded. I'll click on it, and here while installing, make sure you select this add python.exe to path, otherwise your Python won't run on command line. So you will have to set up the python.exe path as a separate environment variable. But don't worry, even if you forget it, I'll show the method how you can add it to your environment path. So for the time being, I'll not select this, but I would recommend you select this so you don't have to manually add this later down the line when you are executing Python. So I'll uncheck this and then I'll say install now. Yes. So it takes some time. So it installs Python and Python installer. So you can see that in your control panel. So setup was successful. Close this, and And now if you go to your terminal and type in Python, and let's run this command. Ideally it should start the Python terminal, but it is opening this window store. So why is this happening? So that's because we have not added Python to the path. Let me show you how to add that. Don't install Python from here. That totally depends upon you. If you want, you can install Python from here, but you have already installed Python on your system, so why to again install it? So what you should do, click here, type environment, and select this, edit the system environment variables. Then select environment variables, and then we have to add Python to path over here. Right now by default Python 3.10, that is 3.10 is added, but we have installed 3.11. so I'll delete this. And then where you have to go to my users. So in C, go to users, go to your own user page, and here make sure in view, make sure you select hidden items, so you are able to see hidden items. And here you have to select app data, and in app data go to local, and here search for programs. There is a folder called programs, this programs, and here you will be able to find Python. In Python select Python 3.11 because we just downloaded and installed Python 3.11. and here you will find this python.exe. so to make the system read this particular file when you execute Python, you have to select this, particular path, copy it and paste it in this environment variable. So click on new and paste it, and then move up. You also have to add pip path as well. Pip stands for Python installer package. So pip, you also get other full forms of pip. So you have to go to lib, and scripts, and in scripts you will be able to find this pip.exe, and copy this path and do the same thing, paste it over here, scripts, and move it up. Okay, so now that both the paths for Python and pip is added, close this environment variables, and now if you close this and start the terminal again, you should be able to start your Python. So if you see, Python shell has appeared over here, and for example you can type in the print command, print Python installed, and it should give the output as Python installed. So Python is installed. You can exit using exit and round brackets, so it has exited the Python shell. And if you want to check whether pip is installed or not, type pip -- version. It should show the pip version. So if you see, installed version of pip is 22.3. so this is how you can install Python on your system. In the next video I'll be discussing about how to create virtual environment and how to make use of this Python in conjunction with either Visual Studio Code or PyCharm. In this video we'll be talking about virtual environment and why you should create virtual environment. So whenever you are building a software or building a web app or building a machine learning model, so you'll be making use of certain dependencies. So in one particular project you'll be making use of one type of dependency, in another you'll be making use of another dependencies. So for example, if I'm building two web apps, and in one I'm going to make use of Django framework, and in another I'm going to make use of Flask framework. So if I only create one virtual environment, which is the default one, and on global level, then that virtual environment will have all these dependencies combined. And at the end of the development phase, when you create your requirement.txt to tell the server to what the dependencies are, at that time it will include unnecessary dependencies as well, which are not actually required in your code. So to prevent that, you can have virtual environment which will only include the dependencies which are needed in that particular project. Another instance why you should create virtual environment is, let's say I am working with two clients, and even though the dependencies are same, they vary in software they vary in version. So let's say if I am building two web apps, in one web app I am making use of Django 4.0, and in another I am making use of Django 3.0. So there is a difference in versions. So to deal with that, I will create two virtual environments, and in one virtual environment I'll have Django 3, and in another I'll have Django 4. So now let's dive into the code. So I am here in tutorial is on desktop, and I'll open my PowerShell because I am using Windows. So this is the location where I am currently at, desktop tutorial is the name of the folder. So to create virtual environment, we are going to make use of this virtual and env package. And to install the package, make sure you have pip installed. To check whether pip is installed on your system, type pip -- version. So since it is showing the version pip 22.3, it means that pip is installed on my system. If pip is not installed on your system, make sure to install it. Usually pip is installed when you install Python from python.org. So if you are not able to find pip, you can uninstall Python and reinstall Python again with pip. So while installing Python, usually you get a checkbox which you need to click for installing pip as well. And the location of pip is, let me show you where the pip is. It usually gets saved in, let me just go to users. If you are using Windows, go to app data, local, and in local go to programs, and in programs you will have this Python folder where your Python is installed. So latest one I am using is Python 3.11, and here I'll have this lib file. So okay, not lib, let me just quickly show. Yes, so in scripts I have this pip.exe. So this is where pip gets usually installed if you follow the express installation of Python. So make sure you have pip installed, and let me just open this tutorial where we will be creating our virtual environment. And to create virtual environment, install the virtual env package, pip install virtual env. If it is installed, it will say requirement already satisfied. If it is not installed, it will download the necessary dependencies and install the virtual env package. So now that virtual env is installed, let us create virtual environment. So for that, type in virtual env, and we'll be creating two virtual environments, one by the name of red and another by the name of blue. So let us first create a virtual environment by the name of red. So I will type virtual env followed by red, the name of the virtual environment, then hit enter. It will take some time, less than 30 seconds. So it is created virtual environment. Now if I go to that particular folder and hit refresh, virtual environment is visible to me. It has two subfolders and two files. So these are the two subfolders, lib and scripts, and gitignore and py virtualenvironment.config file. The thing which we are interested in is in this scripts folder, and here we are interested in this activate file. So to activate your virtual environment in the terminal, so we are in this particular folder right now, you have to type dot backward slash. Dot is to tell the shell or command prompt that you are currently in your working directory, and then backward slash we will go to red because red is the name of our virtual environment, and in that scripts folder, and here we will select activate. So this will activate our virtual environment. Right now virtual environment is not activated because if you see here PS is written, and after I hit enter this red has appeared over here, which tells that the virtual environment has been activated. So we can, if we want to install the dependencies, you can do so over here. So to check which dependencies are installed, I can type pip freeze, hit enter, and since no dependencies have been installed yet, it will not return anything. For demo purpose, let us install Django app over here. So pip install Django, I'll hit enter. It will take some time because it is downloading the dependencies from the internet. So I'll pause the video here and resume when the dependencies have been downloaded. Okay, now that Django is installed, if I do pip freeze, it should show me the dependencies which were installed. So pip freeze, enter. So these are the dependencies which were installed. The latest version of Django, since I did not mention the version, so by default it downloads the latest version. So it is 4.1.3. So if I want to create a requirements.txt file of my virtual environment that I am currently using, I'll type pip freeze greater than requirements.txt. So here you can give any name that you want to create your dependency file, but the convention is we use the name requirements. So I'll hit enter, pip freeze greater than requirements.txt, then run it, and here you will have your requirements.txt file created. Let me just refresh it. Over here a text file will get created, and if you open it, you will have your requirements mentioned over here. So after installing Django, we got these dependencies over here, and now for demo purpose we will create another virtual environment, and we will transfer the dependencies of this particular virtual environment to that virtual environment. So going back to our command prompt, Windows PowerShell. So first let us exit out of this particular virtual environment. To exit red, you just have to type in deactivate. So if you see, this red has disappeared from there, and now let us create a virtual environment by the name of blue. Virtual env blue. Okay, so virtual env blue is also created. Let me refresh it. So blue is created over here. Let us activate the blue virtual environment. So if you see, blue is appearing over here. So virtual environment is created, and if you want to see what dependencies are installed in view, you do this again, pip freeze greater than sign requirements, and let us give this the name as blue because this is pertaining to blue. So requirements.txt. So okay, it is created. Let me just quickly refresh and open this requirements underscore blue. It is appearing blank because we have not installed anything in our virtual environment. So if I want to transfer the contents from requirements to requirements underscore blue, I can do that. But just to tell you how to do it, do pip install requirements.txt, and you have to type -r over here. If you do not put -r, it will not install. So it will read all the requirements mentioned in requirements.txt. So -r needs to be before the name of the files, and now it will install all the dependencies. Pip install -r and then the name of the requirements.txt file. In the meantime, let me just remove this requirements underscore blue, or let me keep it for the comparison sake. I'll create requirements underscore blue number 2. So we will be able to see that the requirements have been transferred. Now let's do pip freeze greater than requirements blue underscore 2 dot txt, and the file is created, and let us refresh and open this file. And if you see, the dependencies have been transferred from our virtual environment red to virtual environment blue. Now how to make use of this virtual environment? So we can make use of this virtual environment in our IDE, integrated development environment. So I have two IDEs installed on my system. One is PyCharm and other one is Visual Studio Code. So let me first open PyCharm. And it has by default opened here in tutorial, and if I want to select red as the default virtual environment, it is still indexing. So once it completes indexing, I'll show you how to select the particular Python environment. So right now it is saying no interpreter, but we will add the path to the Python interpreter here from our virtual environment. So here I have opened the interpreter. I have clicked over here Python 3.11, or you can do it from here as well. Go to files, go to settings, and in settings you can see Python interpreter. Go here in Python interpreter, and here select the interpreter, show all, and here click on this add. After clicking here, find the proper interpreter you want, existing environment, and select it from here. So ours is on desktop, so let us go to desktop, and in desktop we have this let me just copy the path, desktop / then tutorials. Let me just quickly copy this path. Okay, it is on OneDrive and then desktop. So let me just quickly copy the path, hit enter. And here we have this blue or red. So if I want to select red, I will click on the red, then lib, and here I will select Python. Python.exe, it will be visible in this scripts folder. So this python.exe, okay, and then okay. Here it will also show the dependencies which are installed in this particular particular virtual environment: Django, setup tool, SQL parse. So all these are dependencies which got installed when we installed Python over here. The dependencies will show automatically, and then you have to click on apply. But before that, I'll also tell you how to pip install or add more dependencies to your virtual environment via PyCharm. So click on this plus button, and here you will be able to find the particular libraries. So let's say if you want to install pandas, so just type in pandas, and here you will get a host of the dependencies. So pandas, this which is appearing, I'll select this, and then I'll click on install package. So if you see over here, it is saying installing package pandas, and that's all. That's what you have to do. You can then exit this, and once it gets installed over here, it will show pandas over here as well. Click on apply and then okay. So once it gets done applying the changes, and then if you open the terminal, it will show your virtual environment. And then you can, if you add in Python files, let's say test.py, and here if you type print hello, so by default it will make use of this Python which is installed in this red virtual environment. So it is displaying hello, and ideally if you click on terminal, and since we have already selected red as our virtual environment, it is showing red over here. If you want to exit this, you can just type in this particular PowerShell, in this particular terminal, you can, if you type deactivate, it will exit from the virtual environment. This was for PyCharm. Now showing you example for working with Visual Studio Code. So we are in this tutorial, and here I'll create one file, or let's make use of this test.py file which was already created in our PyCharm. So this file is already created, and click on terminal, new terminal, and here you will have to activate your environment. So if we are going to use blue as our working virtual environment, I'll type scripts blue /scripts and then activate, and here if you see blue is appearing, that means we are in our virtual environment. And then I will execute this test.py. So for that I'll type python and then test.py, and it will run this python.py file and then show the output. Since I have used print hello, it is showing the output of the print command. So that's how you can make use of virtual environment. So to wrap up the entire video, so what we first saw how to install Anaconda and Jupyter, how to access Jupyter Notebook, then we saw how to install Python from python.org, and then we ended the video with creating our virtual environment and opening it in PyCharm and VS Code. So thank you for joining me in this particular video, the very first of the entire Python series. So I'll see you in the next video where we start with the actual Python code. This was Shaunak signing off. Bye.